Blog Talk Radio.
The purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me. Purple angel, oh purple angel, you're next to me. You're next to me. You're next to me.
Well, welcome everyone to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm the founder and the host of Alzheimer Speaks Radio, Lori LeBay. And I just want to tell you a little bit, because we always get new listeners, who we are and what we're about before we get into our program. Alzheimer Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. We believe that by joining forces and sharing knowledge and just having these everyday conversations like we do here on Alzheimer Speaks Radio, that we can remove the stigmas and the myths attached to memory loss and really help people who are diagnosed with the disease or living with someone who has the disease, help them live with purpose and to be still part of a society who values them. We believe, again, by having these conversations, we're going to be able to let people understand the true needs of the disease, both for the person and those caring for them. At our core, we know collaboration is the key to winning this battle against dementia. And we know our plan of attack is working, thanks to all of you. You see, your likes, your shares with your Facebook friends, with your Google Circle, with your LinkedIn colleagues, your Twitter tribe, all of those are so crucial because you are helping spread awareness every time you make one of those clicks. Because so often there are people in our circles that we don't even know are dealing with this because they're embarrassed to talk about it. They're not sure where to go. So the more information we can push out there and have accessible to them, the more normal it's going to seem and the easier it's going to be for them to click on a link to get the resources and the support they need. So thank you very much for your help in terms of spreading the word, because we were, Alzheimer Speaks here, had the honor of being named the #1 influencer online for Alzheimer's, according to ShareCare, which is the world's largest health and wellness website, and Dr. Oz. And that's just massive. And again, that isn't us. That is all of us making a difference to raise awareness. So thank you so much. Who we interview on this show is basically anybody. It's about raising everyone's voice, because after a 30-year journey with my mom's dementia, I know how important it is to hear other people's perspectives. So we encourage people with dementia to participate and even to be interviewed on the show, as well as family members, business professionals in the communities, entrepreneurs, developing new products, services, and tools to assist us in living better, and also advocates that are making change. There are so many more resources available to us than most of us know about, and that is really one of our goals, is to help connect people to those resources. So if you haven't checked out our website, www.alzheimerspeaks.com, please go there, because we have a blog where we have lots of information shared, again, from all of these voices around the world. We have a resource directory that you can mine information out of, but you can also input your knowledge and your resources into it and share with others as well. We have Dementia Chats, which is the webinar series that we do twice a month, which is free. Anybody can participate. And our experts, our panelists, actually are diagnosed with the disease. And so we get to talk directly to them, ask those questions maybe we can't ask our family members or our clients. And today on the show, I would really encourage you to call in and chat with us. If you've got a question or a comment, we always like to hear from you, and that number is 714-364-4757. Again, that's 714-364-4757. Or you can use the chat box to communicate with us. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, this month is National Alzheimer's Month, and I just did a little research, and I was really surprised at this. I did not know that Ronald Reagan was the one that set this into place back in 1983, because back in 1983, when I was dealing with this with my own mom, there were very few people even talking about it. So I was kind of shocked. And then it's ironic that Ronald Reagan himself had the disease. It's also National Caregivers Month. And today is a special day as well. November 18th is the Alzheimer's Foundation of America's National Memory Screening Month, and they have a program called Remember Together. We'll be learning a little bit more about that next week when the CEO of the Alzheimer's Foundation is with us. But today you can go to www.remembertogether.org, and you'll be able to find all the sites throughout the nation that are holding memory screenings, and those are free. They only take about 10 minutes to do. I was involved with some memory screenings this summer with HealthStar at our Minnesota State Fair, which was absolutely fabulous. So again, go to www.remembertogether, A as in Apple, F as in Frank, A as in Apple.org. And you'll be able to find those locations there. If you're in Minnesota, HealthStar actually and Arthur's Residential are holding free memory screenings today between 10 and 3 p.m. at J. Arthur's Coffee Shop at 2441 Rice Street in Roseville. That's actually where we hold our memory cafe. So we would love to see you come out and participate in that. Last I'm going to do is just do a shout out to some organizations that I think are very important before I introduce our first guest here. The Purple Angel Project, if you're not familiar with that, we want this logo to be as well known as the pink ribbon for breast cancer. And you can go to Alzheimer's Speaks, to the About page, and then just click on the tab that says Purple Angel. You can learn how you can get that. There's no cost to be able to utilize that symbol and to be able to download the information. If you're looking for an Alzheimer's Association anywhere in the world, I recommend you go to Alzheimer's Disease International. There, not only will you find all the locations of all the Alzheimer's associations around the world, you'll also be able to get great research information and data that's very important. They just did a big study about prevention, and that, again, is all available free online. There is also the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, which takes a more holistic approach, and feel free to go and check that out. They do some amazing work. Again, that's the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. Many are dealing with other types of dementia other than Alzheimer's. It might be Lewy body, or it might be frontal temporal lobe, or maybe someone's having problems with speech, and that's called aphasia. And so all three of these have a national organization. So the Lewy Body Dementia Association, the Association for Frontal Temporal Degeneration, and then the National Aphasia Organization have great information and resources that can be helpful for you. Music Connect. I'm just a big believer in music. It was so helpful with my mom. Is usually one of the last parts of the brain to go, and they have music designed specifically that is enhanced to help people engage with Alzheimer's disease. So please check them out. They also have a great new holiday CD or MP3 that you can get called Memories, the Songs and Spirits of Christmas. And then if you're looking for activities, Puzzle with Me has some great puzzles that are designed specifically for people with dementia and adults. Same with the Jiminy Wicket, which is a croquet game that can be utilized intergenerationally in a family setting, or it can be used between schools and memory care. But both of those could make, all of those could really make great holiday gifts. So again, keep those all in mind, please. I am going to introduce our guest now. I'm really excited to have Betty Robison with us. I met her when I was speaking just a little under a month ago out in Pennsylvania, and I was so impressed with her that I asked if she might be interested in coming on our show here. Betty's career has spanned over 41 years working as an RN in acute care, home health care, and long-term settings. And over the past 8 years, she has worked as the Gerontology Educator at the Aging Institute of UPMC, the Senior Services, and the University of Pittsburgh. And what we're going to be talking about today, I think, is just so important about living safely with this disease. And she's going to give us some absolutely fascinating information, I think, that you'll find, and information sheet on wandering, which is such an issue. You can call it wandering, eloping, escaping, whatever. But when someone's out of sight, it's pretty spooky when you are the one that's caring for them. So welcome, Betty. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Thank you, Lori, and thanks so much for having me on the show.
Well, like I said, I was so impressed listening to your presentation. I thought, we've got to help spread the word of this great knowledge base that you and your organization are, and the information that you're willing to share with others. And that's what Alzheimer's Speaks is about, is trying to help spread the word there. So before we get started kind of down that path, can you tell us, though, I always think it's interesting for our listeners to know, have you been touched by Alzheimer's disease, with family member or close friend?
Well, absolutely. My mother died of Alzheimer's disease back on Christmas Day in 2000. She suffered with it for 5 years, and throughout the process and being with her on a day-to-day basis, she really taught me a lot about what her world was like, and it gave me a lot of insight. So I use it in a lot of my trainings, what I learned from her. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that personal experience, I mean, you can't get better than that.
Yeah.
It's not guessing, it's not interpreting data, it's just that raw entity of practicality that comes into measure, and all those pieces. So I appreciate that. Can you tell us, what do you know that could help people with lessening the probability of somebody wandering?
Well, many times this is pretty much a normal behavior that people, with the disease process, they need to get up and move. They need to possibly walk out in the yard. Maybe they're restless for whatever reason. They're looking for something or searching for something from their past or reliving something from their past. So they wander. And many times this behavior is pretty normal, but there are also times when you're dealing with this. We know that the statistics show that 6 out of 10 individuals with Alzheimer's disease will wander away from home or from a loved one. So, unfortunately, it has a negative aspect to it too. That when somebody is showing signs of wandering, there's always that possibility that they can get lost.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's something that we forget about in terms of, we don't, a lot of times there's kind of a blame game when somebody wanders off and not necessarily thinking that there's truly a need there, that there's a mode to the madness behind that. Once we figure that out, do you think that helps the people in the search kind of calm down and look differently for the person?
Well, definitely. If we know what they were looking for or what their purpose was for possibly wandering away from their home. We had a gentleman in my area who had left his home stating that he needed to feed the horses, even though there were no horses outside. It was something from his life prior. But that all definitely helps the law enforcement and the search and rescue teams get an idea of where they might start to look. Okay. Do you have ideas in terms of trying to, set up somebody's house or environment, or even when you go out, to kind of prevent somebody from wandering off? Do you have some tips regarding that? Well, definitely within the home, trying to make it more secure is beneficial. Such as, we had to do this with my mother, is put alarms on the door, because when you're sleeping and if they're up at night and they have a tendency to want to go outside, having that alarm on the door really helps, wake you up. Also making sure that because they have more of a tunnel vision with this disease process, and they have more of a downward gaze because they have to physically move their head downward in many situations to see, having locks on the upper part of the door is more beneficial, and possibly even concealing doors. Maybe if it's a door with a window, concealing that so that they're not seeing outside and not tempted. Okay. You can also make, yes. I was going to say, a lot of times in communities, you'll see doors being painted as a bookshelf or something else, so people don't know that it's a door. By chance it's actually concealed, or scenery people painted into, so that they don't, so it's not as obvious. And so that's another thing that communities do. And I have seen it done in a couple of homes as well. I know that there are some sites where you can buy kind of a door cover to make it look like something else, like an applique that goes over that as well. And I think the idea of having the locks higher works really quite well for most, because it's just not a normal place to look, for that. Another interesting thing that I found is to, and they suggest this, is to place interesting objects near exits, things that they would pick up, maybe something they would pick up and put away, or something that would distract them. So having a basket there or a table there with interesting objects is important. Okay, so that's just kind of a distractor then from the door, keeping them busy, which is wonderful. And I would encourage, if we've got people on the line that are interested in making a comment, to please call in at 714-364-4757, or utilize our chat box too, because I will be reviewing that. I'm just going to pull in, I think Karen Francis is on the line, and see if she has any other ideas. She's usually full of knowledge here. Karen, are you with us?
I am. Thank you.
Hi, Karen. I was just wondering if you had any ideas to help kind of prevent, people from wandering off in terms of distraction or, whatever it might be.
I do. One thing I think that's important to remember this time of year is to move clothing racks or hooks near the door where you might put a coat and hat, because that's a trigger for them. They see that near the door, that might signal them to say, hey, maybe I can go outside and go for a walk. So that's one thing I tell people to try to keep in mind, keep the coats and hats away from the door. I know that Betty had mentioned about alarms on the doors, and the one thing that a lot of people that have been in my support groups have been using rather than an alarm, because an alarm can just cause a little bit more anxiety. They do have alert systems now that you can record your own voice on or use their recorded voice that say the basement door's been opened or the front door's been opened. And it's a little chime, and then it tells you which door has been opened. So that's something else that's nice to use. And one of the other things I would suggest is to label the doors in the house. Label the bathroom door or put, just like a picture of a little toilet on it. Even sometimes putting stop on a door might be helpful. But labeling things, because a lot of times when they're wandering, it's not that they're wanting to leave, it's that they're looking for something. So I think labeling is a good idea.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Karen. It's always nice to hear what our audience is thinking as well, on this topic, because we like to engage people. So I appreciate your comments. I'm going to put you on mute for right now, Karen, and I'm going to go back to Betty. And Betty, you have this wonderful Wanderinng information sheet that it's long and it's thorough. But can you tell people about it? Because I just think that it is really so valuable on so many levels. Even though it might take a little bit of time and effort, I think it's just well worth it to protect a loved one. So can you talk about your Wanderinng information sheet with our audience?
Sure. The idea here is to have this form completed. Hopefully, they don't cross that bridge where, they're in a position where they have someone lost. But if they do, having all of this information readily available for the search and rescue team is critically important. We all know that when we're under a lot of stress, it's difficult to put all the information together. Plus, it also takes time for those interviews to occur. So having this available, handing it to the search and rescue team. And in this Wanderinng information series of sheets here, there's the contact information, the physical description of the individual, and they would write this in at the time, clothing worn when last seen, their physical health, some of their information about their past behaviors. Have they had lost incidents before, or have they wandered away before? And it really goes in depth. Their occupation, hobbies, all of that is included. Their walking habits too, and what they, their critical wandering patterns. So it's important to have that already, and also a recent picture. That way they can just hand it to the search and rescue team.
One of the things that we've talked about a lot in our Memory Cafe is this whole business about being safe, and our groups are really very proactive about wearing ID bracelets like UBS. That this information could all be downloaded into it, which could have basic contact information as well. But same for a caregiver. So they just they both wear these things, and it's accessible at any time. Because sometimes, even when we fill out this paperwork, then it's like, oh, I have to run home. And if you're at the mall shopping, and you would have an emergency situation, if you wear these ID bracelets as partners, as the care partner and the person with dementia, and have this readily available, that would just kind of ease the process a bit too, to be able to have that. So I just really encourage people to be very proactive about collecting information and being conscious of what habits are, because when we fall into crisis, a lot of times people's heads just turn to mush and they panic and they can't think clearly in terms of, where might they go and what was their history. Part of what I liked about this was that it was just so detailed. I mean, it gets into their physical health, and it gets into do they have glasses and dentures, and can they walk independently or do they need assistance, and we don't again, we think that we're going to remember all that stuff, but I just see people panic and act differently in a crisis. Some are very calm, some are very upset, some are just so overwhelmed that they really can't communicate. And then another family member comes in who really isn't as familiar. And so this information is so critical to be able to have readily accessible. I've got to imagine that it has to be able to save a lot of time if people have this information for authorities when there is an emergency.
Oh, absolutely. They can just hand it to them, and not only just for the home setting, but if there are family members who take them for an appointment, or they should have a copy of it in their car even, or that USB device that you were mentioning. I think that all family members should have access to it. I know one day my mother wandered away. My brother went into the grocery store and said, just wait here for a minute, Mom. And she got up and started walking down the street. Fortunately, he found her, but you never know where they could possibly walk away from you.
Mm-hmm. Now, some of this information, it looks like in the questionnaire, and I actually hadn't caught this before. I looked it over, but there's one section, Alzheimer's or dementia and Alzheimer's questions, and then it says complete the following questions on the basis of the last 2 weeks. And so some of this information might not be completed all at one time. Some might be completed, at the time of an emergency, or I would imagine that it could be completed and dated so people would know when it was last filled out, because there's room for kind of yes, no, or NA. And it gets into, kind of general grooming, can they dress themselves and, wash themselves and things like that. Can you tell us, what those types of questions are helpful for when it comes to a search?
Well, definitely, having all of this information at hand gives them an idea on how well or how far they may be able to walk. Typically, the individual is located 90% within a mile of their home. Mm-hmm. And they usually they always say what was the point of exit as to how they leave the home. But it definitely gives an idea of how functional they are and gives them a clear view. And also what they can do, too, is to update this sheet when the condition changes, so that it's just like the picture. I think sometimes individuals use old pictures which are not as helpful as current pictures. So every 6 months or so, or when the condition changes, updating it is important.
Yeah, we have, again, in our conversations through our Memory Cafe, we've talked about people just trying to take a picture every day once they're dressed, and just kind of do a selfie together, and it's kind of actually a fun activity, and it just kind of builds this like living memorial of life together. But then you always have an accurate picture, because I think one of the things that people with dementia will tell you, especially as the disease progresses, is even facial expressions can change, their look, depending on their level of functioning and what type of day they're having, and not that can't change throughout a day. but just their affect can really change their appearance. If they're smiling and bright-eyed versus if they're more foggy and withdrawn, we all look very, very different at times, or how we decided to brush our hair that day. I know the older I get, the less I fight with trying to make it go the way I want. And I just kind of get into the way it's going to go that day. So, or if someone has shaved or not, and we don't think all that stuff matters. But even if you test yourself on, what do you have on today? Do you know what color socks you put on, or what color shoes, or, without looking? I mean, it sounds really silly, but we all get so fast-paced that I just don't think we pay attention to stuff that we used to, because our minds are so full of so many different things. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that. What are your thoughts on that, Betty?
I think that's true. I think, everything, you were talking about there is very true. And I think it's important, to have information, as much information as we can obtain. And it should be, the family member who knows them the best, who is the closest to them, and can really give that insight.
Okay. I'm going to just ask Karen if she's got anything else to add. Karen, are you still with us?
I am. I guess a couple things in talking about documenting information about your loved one. A lot of first responders, when they go through any kind of search and rescue training, especially for someone that is considered at risk, that has memory issues or autism, or really any health condition in general, first responders are taught to look either on the refrigerator or in the refrigerator for this information. So I always suggest that people put it in an envelope or a plastic sleeve and put it on the refrigerator so they know where to find it to give to the police or the first responders that come to help. And some of the information that I ask for, too, when gathering information so that it's ready in the unfortunate event that somebody would wonder, is asking which is their dominant hand, because if we don't know which direction they want, a person with cognitive impairment a lot of times will wander in the direction of their dominant hand if they don't have a specific site in their view. And then, of course, you talked about Safe Return, or a program similar to it, which is a lot of times in many different areas, the Safe Return program is even offered at no cost, because the Alzheimer's Association many times gets grants to offer the bracelet for both the person with the memory impairment and the caregiver. And I guess the other thing I would want to know is, every state is different, but like in Pennsylvania, we have the Missing and Endangered Person Alert system that is communicated throughout the state to all first responders. It's posted on the turnpike, on the signs along the road. Some states call it a silver alert, but to find that information out, because you want to make sure that it gets out there as many ways possible that somebody has wandered off.
Sure. Well, thank you, Karen. I appreciate that addition. Elva in the chat box says her comment was, it's easy to take a snapshot every morning of the person once they're dressed. Just make it a habit, because you might not remember what they're wearing, and it's just so easy to do. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, especially nowadays, with cell phones that can capture that information. So I think that's very good advice. Thank you, Elva and Karen. Some of the questions too on this form I find are really interesting too. Is does a person know their name? and will they know their name, if someone different calls it out? I mean, just it could be the tone of voice that is the recognition, not so much the name itself. And so some of those things we don't always pay attention to. And that's a critical thing for emergency responders and those looking for someone to know, so that they're not overlooked. And like I said, this form is just, I just think it's absolutely fabulous. What was put together here. It goes into even emotional changes, and asks if someone gets delusional at all, because that can be an issue with this, and where have they lived, and because somebody might want to go back to an old homestead, or maybe even where they've worked. Betty, in terms of locations where people have lived, I mean, this whole form, it's almost like a profile that would be used to apprehend a criminal, but it's just using it in a positive way by looking at life experiences and personalities and wants and needs. Would you consider that kind of a similar profiling experience? I mean, it's just so detailed, and I think it's in a very, very positive way. I never thought of I guess I never really thought of profiling as a whole in terms of the detail and how things are scrutinized and looked at, and the value of the information that we're all sitting with that we don't always share.
Correct. I think that having an understanding of why they were leaving, what might have prompted them to leave, and their past life, the things that they used to do, all play a role in this. And it's just like the gentleman in my neighborhood who wandered away and was going out to feed the horses. His body was found in a field, and that's so their past life really does come into play, and getting an understanding of where they might go.
Mm-hmm. Which is so important. And that's another thing on this form. It talks about have there been other incidents of wandering, and where did they go, and how long were they gone for, and all of those types of things too, because that could be very great information. Now, I know that, and I wish Harry was on the line with us, Harry Urban, because he just has wonderful insights, because I know he despises kind of the term wandering, and he says, we like to explore, we like to be able to get around. So I think sometimes the terminology that we use for people with early onset, they find a little bit offensive at times, though they totally understand it. They just say from their viewpoint, they're not just wandering off. They have a purpose. They have a place to go. They're looking for something. Mm-hmm.
And that's true, because what the research shows, and a gentleman by the name of Robert Coaster from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management documents this well in his book, Lost Person Behavior, that it is true that what they find is they don't consider themselves lost. And that's why a lot of times they don't respond when people call their name, because they don't see themselves as lost.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it is very critical, too, is that, and many times because they're possibly experiencing some anxiety as they're, wandering a field or whatever, they seclude or hide from people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it can be scary. I mean, as people, with dementia, as things deteriorate, they can go back to kind of a younger state and age of, where, we tell people don't talk to strangers. And so if they're lost and fearful and they hear somebody calling their name, that could trigger too for someone to hide. You just
right.
you don't quite know. And did they like authority or were they scared of authority? That could make a difference if somebody in a uniform's looking for them. Too, depending on their past and their trust level and things and just the tone of voice and is somebody using names that are familiar or not, and knowing information about them. So yeah, it's very, very interesting form, and I think just a very, very valuable form. Can you tell people where they can get this Wanderinng information sheet, Betty?
Absolutely. If they go on aging.upmc.com to the Aging Institute and click on Resources for Caregivers, it is located on the right side of the page, and they can download it.
Okay, good. And what I will do is I'll go to the blog post too and get that particular link for people, and I'll post it in the chat box here, and we will definitely mention that again. Can you talk a little bit about what research tells us about locating somebody? Is there even any research that's been done on this topic?
Yes, and this is Mr. Koster's, in his book, a lot of research has been done. What it shows is that the individual usually starts off walking along a roadway, but 66% will depart from that roadway. Mm-hmm. But if they leave the roadway, they do not travel far. They lack the realization of danger. They don't perceive themselves as lost. But believe it or not, they are attracted to wooded areas, water, and if they walk into the woods, they typically do not walk back out of the wooded areas. Like I said, they will hide, will not respond right. Also, drainage areas, with water, they lack the ability to turn around and go back. And according to Mr. Koster, they will walk until they get stuck or they can't walk anymore. And so that's why it's so critical. And the average length of time to locate someone once they become lost is 9 hours. But like I said, they're usually within a mile from their home. Mm-hmm. Also, it's important that the search and rescue will ask for a article of clothing for the scent for the search dogs. So having that readily available, is important. One of the nursing homes, what they do once a week is they use the pillowcase, fold it up, and put it in a Ziploc bag and keep it handy out at the front desk in case that happens. But I thought that was a good idea, having the pillowcase put aside. So, so all of that, and also the fact that, in Pennsylvania here, we're getting into some pretty cold weather over the last few days. They don't necessarily dress for cold weather. So it doesn't take long in this kind of weather for serious consequences, do occur because of it.
Yeah, and that's it's so spooky. Here, I'm outside and my fingers are frostbit, or feeling like they're going to be in such a short period of time. And people don't always, wear appropriate clothes when they leave, because they just don't know to do that anymore. And so it is very important especially if you live in areas that can have, dangerous weather. And that can be, the heat of the sun too. It doesn't have to be the cold of Minnesota. With that, there's a lot of different variables that can come into play. And so being well aware of that is a good idea. Now, I know that, let's see, Karen had made a comment here. She had written me something here. Where was it? she was saying that for Wanderinng, that if it's a facility or community that somebody lives in, that they can do, besides just locking the doors to a station, they can have kind of meandering paths or circular paths. You'll see a lot of that. So if you need to place somebody in a community, sometimes it's nice to look to see, is there a place for people to be able to move around, because that can be critical too. Some people like to sit, but some people are on the go all the time. And so you've got to let them be able to have room to do that. She also mentioned the murals, which we talked about before, and the availability of Project Lifesafer. And Betty, are you familiar with Project Lifesaver? I believe you are.
Yes, I am. That is a great service that if the local police departments have the Wanderinng wand, it's like a wand that they track the signal with. So if your local police department has that service, that's an excellent thing to register for. The individual wears a device that can be tracked. Mm-hmm. But also Project Lifesaver has another service that they provide, and it's called the PAL, the Personal Locator and Emergency Alert Solution. And it is a device that they wear. They cannot remove it. Looks like a watch. And it comes like with almost looks like a little iPhone that they can be tracked, and the perimeter can be set. And once they walk outside that perimeter, it notifies you. So that, to me, the GPS type systems are so valuable right now. And plus the other big factor here, as we talked about, they're attracted, when they wander away, they are attracted to wooded areas, water. The devices have to be waterproof, and this particular device, this PAL product, is waterproof. And I'm not, like a spokesman for it or whatever, but I researched a lot of the different devices, and I know that waterproof is a big factor.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think that because you don't know what's going to happen, and it could be weather, it could be a pond, it could be all different types of things.
Right, it could be raining, or the dew on the grass or whatever, or in maybe tall grasses that they're in. Can have a definite factor. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. Can you mention the name of the book again that was written? The Lost Person, was it Lost Person Behavior?
Yes. Lost Person Behavior, a search and rescue guide on where to look for land, air, and water. And the gentleman who wrote it is Robert J. Koester, Koester. And it talks in this book about all different types of lost person behavior. Individuals who become lost out while hiking, where they typically find them. They've done a lot of research on it, as well as individuals with Alzheimer's disease.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat box to Lost Person Behavior by Robert Koester, which is again, great information. The more resources we have, the easier it just is for all of us to be able to find somebody sooner. I had a friend, and I've mentioned this a couple times on the radio, where she had a sister who was living in assisted living, and she wandered off, and it was just a horrible fiasco. In terms of trying to find her, and it really made me realize that a lot of police departments do not have a formal method set up to find somebody. And I was out of town and got back in about 9 days later, and there still wasn't a press release. There weren't signs up. It was really up to the family, and it was just kind of bizarre. And I think it was a month and a half later she showed up 2 hours away in a coma in the hospital. And, that was late summer, and we still don't know. She's in a rehab right now. Still don't know what happened, to her. And
what is
go ahead.
so difficult for the search and rescue and law enforcement is that when they go missing, they never follow a logical path. They walk in a straight line. For the most part, they have this tunnel vision, which is common with the disease process, and they will go through fields, creeks. They'll climb over obstructions if they can. So it's difficult sometimes to imagine, where will they go? But the straight line research, what they have found with that is seen over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and this was a community that was, it's very sprawled out. It's more rural, but it was there were just so many different places, from down by large lakes to going even more rural to the city, to the small town, and then there were bus routes and major travel routes out, and it was like no one really knew what happened. And so again, very spooky thing, big eye opener for me in terms of where the brunt of the responsibility falls when someone does go missing too, and how is someone viewed as a vulnerable adult or not, in terms of how quickly they're going to start putting things in place, and then how far do they really take it. I guess I just never, I've been through it, and so I had never really thought of the expense involved in terms of a search and rescue mission as well, which might sound really dumb on my part, but it just not something I thought about because I hadn't had to deal with it. And so it was kind of interesting hearing details in terms of cost that these missions can take, and when there's these big search parties that go out, it sounds like primarily that's usually coordinated, by the family and not necessarily the police. Is that your understanding too, Betty?
Right. After, in the case of the gentleman that lived in my area, he after 24 hours, they had to call off the search by law enforcement and search and rescue. It was a family organizing team because, again, it is very costly, and a lot of people are involved. They do their best job that they can, and so, yes, a lot of times it is the family and volunteers that help, and that's why that alert system is so important, for everyone with cell phones. I mean, we get it right over our cell phones, and that is critical. So it alerts you to things going on in your neighborhood that you might possibly want to go out and help with.
Okay. Now, Elva's asking a question. She says, what's the name of the PAL device and the website? Was that part of Project Lifesaver?
Yes, it is. Under Project Lifesaver, you'll see it right on the website, PAL, and so, yes, it's right there with it, right on the front page.
Okay, and and you probably want to go to Project Lifesaver International, too. There's a couple of different ones out there, is my guess on that, Elva. And if you want to go ahead and put that in the search box, well, actually, I've got the website here. I just found it too. I can go ahead and throw that in the chat box here for people to be able to find, because again, another great resource for people to have. Karen, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I know that you've dealt with Project Lifesaver. Anything that you want to add about Project Lifesaver or the PAL system?
Just with Project Lifesaver, it is the responsibility of local police departments to, take the initiative to administer the whole program, and a lot of areas are concerned about the cost. But I think it's important to point out that there are grants available for the whole system, for the locating apparatus they need. and the training that they need. So a lot of times I don't think cost should be such a huge thing to overcome, because there are grants out there, not just through Project Lifesaver, which does offer grants on their website or tells you where to apply for them, but you can look locally for grants as well to help cover the cost.
Yeah, and and the police departments are, they know how to write grants and things too. So working with the city on that, because it's not something that you would personally write a grant for, because some people don't know how grants work, but it has to be usually through a nonprofit, not all, but typically through a nonprofit organization to be able to get that to work. And with dementia kind of coming to the forefront now with all states developing plans, this would be a great grant to be able to put into place and to get a team built on that. The other thing that I wanted to mention was again on this form, again it's just filled with wonderful things, but it talks about a person's walking habits. Again, that's something that we normally think about a lot. How often do they walk? Are they able to maneuver? Are they okay on uneven ground? All of those types of things, and then just stuff to think about in terms of answering your questions. And wandering patterns. Can the person drive? When they find keys? Have they been saying where they want to go lately? And a lot of people will say they want to go home, but where is home to them? A lot of times care partners get frustrated going, you are home. Well, apparently it's not the home they're thinking of. So we have to think a little bit deeper, with all of this stuff. So I would highly recommend that you, get this information sheet. It's on our blog post, and it's in the chat box. And I'm going to add that link too. I thought I had it, but I guess I didn't on our radio page. I will put that on there after the show, so it's on that page as well. With that, I apologize that I don't have that there at the moment with that. So, Betty, did you want to talk any more about GPS systems or tracking systems at all?
Well, too, if you choose something else besides, the Project Lifesaver, make sure if it's utilized through your phone, that whatever phone service you have has good coverage for the area that this individual lives in, and that the people who are monitoring it, that it's serving your area well. And another point about just in general is to make sure that you alert your neighbors and local businesses, because too, sharing them pictures or letting them know the possibility could be there. We need to communicate with the folks around us if they would happen to see them, to give you a call and to try to intervene in some way.
Okay, good advice. Good advice. Karen, anything that you would like to add?
I think Betty has covered it in every way possible. She made a great point about the, if you're going to use a GPS or something that tracks somebody through your phone, she makes a great point about the fact that to make sure you have good coverage, that's one of the reasons why Project Lifesaver is so reliable. They use a radio frequency rather than relying on GPS or satellites. So that's why they're able to find people so quickly, because it works a bit better in mountainous areas, and you really don't have to worry about cell phone towers.
Yeah, and that technology is wonderful, to a point, and it definitely has its pitfalls at times, and so we need to know what those are. And again, I would recommend, if you haven't invested in ID bracelets, if that's something engraved, if that it has a UBS with more medical information and contact information, you don't want to be putting in social security numbers and bank information on that, but you can easily put on medication, contact people, because emergency professionals will be able to plug that into their computers right away and be able to find a source. And same for care partners. Something could happen to us, and if we would just run out to the store and someone is able to be a home for a short time, but if we get in a car accident or somebody has a stroke or a heart attack or whatever it might be, or a seizure, some type of medical condition, somebody needs to know you're caring for somebody, and that they need some comfort, that they need some coverage, with that person as well. So don't think that ID bracelet and this medical information is just one-sided. If you're truly working in partnership, you both need to be, in my opinion, responsible to one another to make life as easy as possible with that. Alva has just noted that a year ago she looked at Project Lifesaver, and there was only one municipality in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that had that. And she's like, and we're a community of 6 million people. So this is something that, needs to be spread more. We need a lot more knowledge, about the need for these systems, for information like Betty has. And she also adds that home can mean someplace that they feel safe, but they're just unable to express it. So it might not be, the exact location that they're at right now. And so again, we have to have kind of a broader stance in terms of how we are looking at things. Betty, any last minute comments that you want to make? I can't believe our hour has flown by already.
Well, there's also, there's Comfort Zone, which is another location type system administered by the Alzheimer's Association. So that's another thing to check out, and I can send you that link. And one last tip that folks can think about, too, is putting reflective strips on their jackets or on their shoes, things like that, that if search and rescue is shining flashlights in the dark, they might be able, if the individual isn't responding, to pick up on reflector strips.
Oh, no, that's good. I was out the other day, and there was a guy walking, and we kind of giggled at it, but he had a hat on, just like a baseball hat, but it had a blinking light on it. And it was great because we sure as heck weren't going to hit him with the car. But it was and it was really dark out, and he was in dark clothes, and that could have happened, without that, because you just blend in and stuff. So I think, reflective tape, and there's a lot of blinky things that you can purchase now to wear with items, and it can't hurt. It just can't hurt. So wonderful. Betty, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Well, I can give you two numbers. The first number is for the Aging Institute and the Information and Referral Center. It's 866-430-8742, and that line answers 24 hours a day. My office number, which is also listed on our website, is 412-864-2092.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you again so much for coming out and sharing your valuable information with us. It was absolutely a fabulous discussion, and I hope a lot of people pick up that PDF on that Wanderinng information sheet. Again, I posted that in the chat box. I posted that on the blog post, and we'll be adding it onto our radio page as well on there. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Well, you're most welcome. Glad to be of some service here, so glad to do it.
Wonderful. You have a great day, and I'm sure we will catch up here in the future.
All right. Thanks so much, Lori.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right.
I am going to go ahead and just give some mid-program highlights while I'm still waiting for our next guest to call in. And Our last radio show, we talked about staying mentally healthy when caring, and we were supposed to have the Alzheimer's Disease and Research Center on. They weren't able to make it, but we had a great conversation about staying mentally healthy. So go ahead and listen to that show. All of our shows here on Alzheimer's Speaks Radio are archived, so you can listen to them anytime. Next week, we are going to be having the authors of Remember, I Can't Remember, and which is just a great book, I think, filled with tips, which will be a good conversation. Plus, we are going to have the CEO and from the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. He's going to be talking about the Remember Together program. He'll also be able to give us, I would imagine, more information about today's memory screening, because again, it is the National Memory Screening Day, and you can go to, again, the Alzheimer's Foundation of America site to get information on locations close to you. Or you can go to www.remembertogetherafa.org. Again, that's remembertogetherafa.org. And if you're here in Minnesota, in my neck of the woods, at J. Arthur's Coffee Shop on 2441 Rice Street in Roseville, they are doing free memory screenings from 10 to 3 a.m., and that is with HealthStar Home Health and Arthur's Residential Care at J. Arthur's Coffee Shop. So I was amazed, again, when we were out at the state fair, the numbers of people that got screened. Over 2,200 people went through the screening, and then we also had over 14,000 people, that we talked with. So it was a pretty impressive showing of interest from the community. Our last Dementia Chats was a hot topic with the news of Robin Williams' suicide might have been associated with Lewy body diagnosis. So we talked about that, and we talked about did his dementia have an impact on his decision? What were people's thoughts, and what would others do in that case? And I think if you watch it, you'll be pretty interested in the conversation, because our panelists, we had two kind of for someone being able to take their life if the disease progressed too far, and we had two that said they didn't feel that was the way. No matter what your belief is, I think it'll get you thinking about this disease and the impact that it has and the impact that we have on those with the disease. Our next Dementia Chats will be on the 24th, and again, those are all free. That'll start at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the 24th, 2 Central, 1 Mountain Standard, and noon Pacific Time. As far as the blog, we had a note from Norms on the Purple Angel. It had its first anniversary, the 16th of this month, which was pretty exciting. It started out with about 50 ambassadors, and there's over 200 international ambassadors for the Purple Angel. The movement is really picking up steam, and again, if you would like more information, you can go to alzheimerspeaks.com and go to our About tab and then click on the Purple Angel. And we would love to see you help get that symbol out. We've talked about National Screening Day. There's information on the site there. There's a new video called Facing the Future with Dementia that I posted on the 14th. And that is a video, once again, about Greg O'Brien, who is the author of a book called On Pluto. And he's a journalist, or was a journalist, I should say, and he is now diagnosed. And for the last few years, he has kind of been journaling his journey and sharing that with others. So it's a very touching video, one that I think is important for people to watch. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next guest here. we have with us on the show for our second half Andreas Forsland, and he is the founder of Smartstones, makers of Smartstones Touch, which is the world's first wearable communication device for nonverbal communication. So we'll have to have him explain that. It's amongst a small mobile group specifically designed for parents and caregivers worldwide to help them mobilize care and support in an emergency situation or just dealing with daily reminders. It's really quite flexible, and it also helps to maintain an emotional bond with loved ones while people are caring, which is absolutely wonderful and can provide encouragement throughout the day. Andreas is really passionate about improving life by supplying simple products and services which will improve quality of life. So welcome, Andreas. How are you today?
Good morning, Lori. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm doing great.
Well, good. Now, where are you located again? You're in warm weather, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. I hope it warms up where you are right now. We're in the Central Coast area of California, just about an hour north of Los Angeles. It's a small community called Santa Barbara.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm heading out to Palm Springs in another week and a half, 2 weeks, for about a week, so I'm excited. I'm hoping it'll be warm when I get there, but it's going to be warmer than here, no doubt. So that'll be nice. That'll be really nice. Well, first let's talk, because I always like to pose this question to everybody who joins us. Have you been personally touched with anybody in your family or a friend with dementia at all?
Oh my, yes, Lori, I have. Actually, the inspiration for Smartstones is a bit of a long time coming. I'm 40 years old now. When I was 15 years old, my father was diagnosed with dementia. I was an only child, so my mom and I didn't quite know exactly how to manage it or to provide care. As it started to progress, as a 15-year-old, I started to have to take on more of the role and responsibility as the head of household. So I learned very early what it was like to take care of someone and not really sign up for the job, right? Just being sort of thrust upon this situation. You have to really learn and adapt, and you can't really outsource it. You have to really take it on. So my father actually passed quite a few years later, maybe about 6 years later, when I had graduated from college, and he had his dream was to see me graduate university because he didn't, and he just missed it by a couple of months. So,
that's so hard, but it's his life, and it's interesting to see how people maneuver through this disease once they're touched by it, and what people go on to do. I find it just fascinating because maybe it's just because I'm part of it, that I find it so extremely fascinating in terms of what people do. But it's just I just don't hear about that many people going in to make change with other things that are that they're touched by in their life. And so I find it really interesting, the numbers of people. And again, maybe it's just my ignorance, and this is just my space, and so I hear about more of it than not. But I appreciate your efforts in terms of trying to make a difference. So why don't you tell us what exactly inspired you to create Smartstones, and what exactly is a Smartstone? How does it work?
Sure. Well, just about 2 years ago, in 2012, my mom came to visit with us here in California for her 70th birthday. When she arrived, she wasn't feeling well, and it turned out that she had pneumonia, and she had to actually be admitted into the ICU while she was here visiting. And it turned out that it was nearly fatal. It was so aggressive, it took over both lungs, caused septic shock, and kidney failure, and it was a very, very stressful event for me. I was sort of thrown back into the caregiving role all of a sudden. And during that time that she was in the ICU, she couldn't speak. She was intubated, so she had a breathing machine pretty much breathing for her. And she was sedated on occasion, but then also tied. Her arms were tied so that she wouldn't, when she'd come out of sedation, she wouldn't remove the cables and intubation and things like that. So it was a fairly stressful situation for her. But when she was conscious, she could actually she could communicate with me through her eyes and through touch, but she couldn't speak. So the idea really came to me that what if I could simply create a device that she could hold in the palm of her hand, that she could touch very gently with simple swipe taps, or possibly just tap it against the side of the bed rail. And each of those different gestures could be a simple way to send me a message to my smartphone. So when I was not there, she would be able to let me know that everything's okay, or if she's scared, or if she needs me to come right away. You have to understand that, I have a busy life, I was working in a technology company here at the time, a fairly large one, and I managed a very large international team in India and in the U.S. and in Europe. And so as a busy professional, as a head of household with my own family, and then also having to care for my mom as she's going through this major event, I just really thought, wow, how powerful could it be to be able to be in touch with someone when they're going through something of a transformation or a change event, whether it's separation anxiety or a major health event, or something like cancer recovery, where people really just need to feel that they have support, or that the people that are supporting them are really close with them, especially when they're not in a condition where they could use their smartphone or they could send text messages. There's no way that she could have used text messaging. There's no way that she could have used a smartphone in that environment or in her situation. And what we realized is that situation was kind of an inspiration, and it was kind of an extreme case. But if you think about Alzheimer's or other types of conditions where people find technology too complicated, right? They find using smartphones, albeit they're very powerful and nice, they're still too complicated. And in an emergency, it takes many taps, and you have to think a lot about, say, opening up a phone, unlocking it, finding your chat application, typing out a message, and waiting for it to send and get back to you. So I wanted to cut all of that complexity out and make the ease of connecting with people as simple as just tapping and swiping a little object.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense. Where are you at with the process of this? In terms of, can people get this product now, or is it in development, or?
Yeah, thanks. It's in development. We've been working on it for about a year, so we're pre-production, so we're ready to go into manufacturing. What we're going to be doing very soon is we're going to make an early set of these products available to individuals who want to try them out before we go to mass production. And we have a website set up. We have a website set up right now where people can go and enter their email address and sign up to be notified when we're ready to launch our what we're calling a pre-order campaign. So they can order it in advance and be the first ones to get them.
Okay. Well, that's exciting for people to be able to be in on the ground level.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And you had said something really interesting, Lori, just around people. There aren't enough entrepreneurs that are taking personal situations and really inventing new things, especially in this category, or in this area. And it's quite a big problem. Dementia care and Alzheimer's it's a very big sort of scope, and it's not just an American condition; it's international. But what we found is that a lot of people have great ideas, but it's mostly about execution, you know. And I think if people can find, more and more people can find other good people that can help them execute their ideas, you'll start to see more and more change start to happen. So as an example, one of the things that's really helpful for us, we're working with a number of other allied partners and companies that are in the caregiving space. So we're in discussions to see, can we make these Smartstones available for people through their communities? So can we make them available through facilities or independent living or assisted living facilities? Can we make them available through hospice care facilities so that people can have easier access to getting their hands on them, you know, and using them in the real world? So we're actively looking for distribution partners right now to partner with, which is very exciting. And again, we're very close to getting ready for manufacture. The Smartstones will be available mid next year, so in the summer of 2015. And we're hoping to launch our pre-order campaign coming up here during the holidays to give a sense of how many people really are interested in getting some of these things. So the beauty is that you can, for less than the price of a single smartwatch, like an Apple Watch or a Samsung Watch, which are hundreds of dollars for a single device, we're going to make these available in simple packs of, say, a 2-pack of Smartstones, so you can communicate with a loved one. We're also going to make them available in 5-packs, so you can literally give them to everyone in your family, including a caregiver, children, an elder, or a spouse. And a simple 5-pack will cost less than a single smartwatch. So you can really see the benefit of being able to have everyone in communication. And what's also exciting that we're hearing is, you know, what we're hearing through meeting with people and sharing our products with them is we ask them questions about what are the solutions that they have right now for staying in touch or in case there's an emergency. And a lot of people, you know, they think about the Lifeline products or the Life Alert wearable products. But the challenge with those, one of which is one of the things that we learned. I used to work at Philips prior to starting this company. And one of the things that I learned is that a lot of the calls that come into the call centers actually aren't emergencies. It's from people who are just simply lonely and they want to talk to someone, right? And so one of the things that we're trying to address here isn't just the emergency. It's really the day-to-day communication to have people feel connected and comforted and safe. So that idea of being connected with, you know, one other person or 4 or 5 or 9 other people that are in your social network, if you will, having that daily contact is really, really beneficial. It lifts people's spirits. It makes them feel like they're connected. And it really, you know, we believe, or I believe, that, you know, when you have a lot of positivity in your environment, you tend to thrive and live longer and live better. If you become lonely and isolated, things really spiral downhill. And so that's really what we're hoping to do, is really change the perception of what a device can do, right? These Life Alert products really carry a bit of stigma. For people who are healthy or in transition or at the early stages of dementia, many people don't see themselves as candidates for these types of devices because they carry a negative stigma. It's a stigma of weakness, and we think that's garbage. We think that's a terrible idea. You shouldn't have to wear something that makes you feel weak. You should wear something that makes you feel really powerful and connected and loved. And so that's really what we're trying to do, is design something that's beautiful, and it's high tech, but the technology is really hidden away. You don't see the technology at all, so that you really can focus more on those relationships and on that connectivity.
Yeah, and that just makes so much sense. And this isn't just for a person with dementia. And I would imagine given the skills somebody needs to be able to interpret this is something that would need to be utilized sooner than later. So it's not going to work for somebody in mid to late stage. Really more if it was started with someone with mild cognitive impairment or even prior to that. Because it's not just for people with dementia. I believe you're testing this with autistic children and things as well. Is that correct?
That's right, Lori. Yeah, it really is something that is good for anyone who has a relationship with someone, a caregiver, and a care recipient. And sometimes it's very lightweight. It doesn't require a lot of heavy caregiving, but it's a nice relationship, a way to kind of enhance their relationship and their connection. With regards to the autism use, we're working with some organizations that provide products and services for families that have autism in their family, and both in the professional caregiving space as well as the in-home family caregiving. And one of the things that's very appealing for those for the families that are providing care for children with autism is really helping to do two things. One is addressing wandering. The wandering is a real concern for autism. If you've read about autism, there's quite a few incidents where children with autism, they just run. They run and they run away, and it's very difficult to find them, especially if they're nonverbal. So there's even been incidents of children being hit by cars because they've run into intersections and they weren't intercepted early enough, right? So the wandering piece is really important for us to address. So our Smartstones, they come with a free application that you can download on your iPhone or iPad, and it provides you the ability to locate them. So if you say, for instance, order a 5-pack of Smartstones, you'll be able to give one to each of the people you care about, and essentially once they're all in possession of those people, you can open up the app and locate them on a map. Right? You can not just locate them, but you can actually send them a message to their Smartstone, whether it be a reminder or a simple check-in. You can literally push a button and send a message to an individual and say, "How are you?" And from their stone, they can respond good or bad. And they can actually say really good or really bad, just simply through a touch. It's really exciting. So the ability to schedule automatic reminders for people that need a little bit of a nudge in the morning to don't forget to take your medication, or it's time for dinner, come home. These are types of things that are fairly basic and easy to communicate through things that don't require speaking. So what we're finding is that there's a lot of similarity between some of the situations that families with autism have with families with dementia care and aging.
Okay. Now, Elva in the chat box said she just looked you up, Smartstones, on the website, and she said she's very involved with advocating for universal design principles in residential constructions in her city in Arlington, Texas, which is a population of 365,000. She says the Smartstones website says that they support the universal design principles. Can you elaborate on universal design principles and how you're working with that?
That's a really great question. Yes, so one of the things regarding most consumer electronics and devices have to do with screen readers and being able to translate text in a way that makes it easier for people to read. Well, our products don't require people to read at all. It really, as long as you can wear this in your pocket or on your body, the communication comes through light and vibration. So as an example, if it buzzes twice, if it vibrates twice, and it lights up with a red light, depending on what you set that up to mean, it could mean come to dinner, or it could mean take your medicine. So it's very accessible in the sense that you don't need to read things. it's also accessible just because it's intuitive for people to use in a more tactile way. So as an example, we've been working with the Braille Institute, which is a university for visually impaired, and we've been doing early concept testing with them on what are the types of gestures that are very intuitive. And when I mean gestures are things that we call, you can hand motions, you can shake the device in a certain way, up, down, left, right, vigorously versus a light tap or a swipe. And they're actually giving us really, really wonderful input and ideas for how to send and receive messages. What we've also learned is that the blind are using accessibility features on their smartphones in very interesting ways. So a lot of the capability, as an example, that a smartphone has for people with visual impairments, they don't need a big rectangular device. Because they don't need to see the icon. So there are some other ways that we can design the software on the Stone so that people can use it without requiring the need for looking at things. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that does. I think that answers that very, very well. So I appreciate the additional information on that because it's always nice to know how things are put together and why. It just makes a lot of sense. And Alva, if you have any other questions, please go ahead and type those in. We also have a caller from the Pennsylvania area on a 9998 number, and I don't know if you have a question or not that you want to ask or a comment you want to make, but please feel free to push 1, and I would be more than glad to call you into the conversation. Some people just call in listening through the phone, and so I don't want to embarrass anybody either, but if you are interested in talking and you're listening by phone, just push 1, and then I'll know that you have a question or comment that you would like to ask our guest and participate in the conversation. Can you tell us, some examples of how the Smartstone would be used? How would somebody use that for communicating? Can you give us a couple of examples?
Sure. So, one example there's two kind of examples. One's a professional caregiving example. Okay, so you might have an organization such as hospice care or an assisted living facility where you have professional caregivers who are coming and going. So a professional caregiver can simply download the app onto their phone and order a handful of stones. And basically for whoever they're providing care for, including the families of the care recipient, they can give these stones to them to use. And it's a great way for a professional caregiver to, as an example, schedule automatic reminders for them to say, this isn't something that you just do remotely, right? It's something that assists and augments the real experience of being there with people. So if you could imagine a caregiver sitting down with a care recipient and saying, here's your Smartstone. I'm going to schedule some reminders for you because you're forgetful about taking your meds or you haven't gotten out of the house for your daily walk today. So let's come up with a way to do that. And so they would discuss that with the care recipient and say, okay, great. When your stone vibrates and lights up with this color, it means take your heart medication, right? If it vibrates in a different pattern and it also has sound chirps and sound files. So if it makes a certain sound, it's a reminder for you to go for your walk. So those are things you can do that help the care recipient be more successful in managing their day-to-day routines. And then in the case of other events where the professional caregiver, what we found is that quite a bit of time is spent on the caregiver side, driving to and from and picking up and dropping people off. And there's a lot of unknowns around that, especially for folks who don't have cell phones or don't like to use those. So what we're finding is that it even helps with arranging the pickup and drop-off experience. So as an example, when the caregiver gets close by, within a couple hundred feet of wherever the care recipient is, the care recipient's stone will light up and notify them that the caregiver is close by.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I'm just thinking that this would be a great thing to even use with teenagers and kids who are embarrassed and don't want their friends to know they're communicating with their parents. There's lots of different ways that this could be used, and it's simple, and it looks like, from what you showed me, it's nice and small. Can you describe the size of the stone?
Yes. The stone is about the size of, it's a little bit larger than a 50-cent piece. It's a couple inches, about 2 inches by 2 inches, and it's about a half an inch deep. So it's a fairly small stone. It fits very small in the palm of your hand, much like a regular river stone. So like a regular stone you might pick up on the beach or on a hike. So it's really, it's very simple. It looks very natural. So it doesn't look like a technology device at all. And we also have some wearable accessories that you can put it into. So we have a beautiful leather wristband that it can slide into. We also have a beautiful necklace frame that you can snap it into and wear it long or short. And we have sterling silver and gold plate necklace frames. So it's quite a fashionable item. But what you were talking about earlier, which is really neat, it is good for anyone. And what we've heard from a lot of empty nesters is, and kids going from high school into college, is there's a lot of anxiety around that separation and that change, right? It's a very big life change for them. And a lot of empty nesters are thinking, this would be really nice to use with my kids who are going to college, because how, I don't know who's on the call, but when your kids go to college, quickly it becomes difficult to hear, how are you? Are you alive? Are you okay? Simply touch the stone to let me know everything's all right. So just little simple things like that mean a lot to everyone, right? So just having a private, connected way to just touch base with each other is a really, we've also found that girls, especially college girls who are going out, or anyone that goes out on the town and goes out to bars or clubs and things, they like to have a discreet way of staying connected, so just for their own safety and security. We've heard from universities that they would like to use smartstones as well, to help make sure that people have a very discreet way of letting people know if there's a situation that they're uncomfortable about. So there's a lot of interesting uses for it, but where the most interest is for us, where we're interested, we're really trying to help improve the quality of life for people. So that's why we're finding out how we can make it really valuable and useful for people who are providing care, because I personally know the stress and anxiety that comes along with caregiving, and I really want to make the lives of caregivers that much better, because a lot of folks that are in caregiving, they do it because they love the person they're taking care of, and they're not getting paid for it. And it's roughly $450 billion a year in lost income in America. So there's an economic impact to try and make the daily lives of people who are unpaid caregivers a little bit better. If they can get an extra hour back in their day, or be happier during the course of providing care, it really can make a big difference to the economy too.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, the sooner that we can implement people getting used to communication devices like this, the easier it will be to be able to use, as an illness or something crops up, if it's dementia or something else. And the nonverbal aspect of it is really nice, and it's you had shown me that with a stone, you can, it lights up from like red to green, and you can just slide your finger over the stone to say, if you're more anxious or if you're happy, depending on the question that is posed. and and the shake that somebody receives and stuff. And so it's pretty neat, or if they're in trouble, they can just shake it, and the person on the other end will receive that, this signal, kind of this smoke signal that, hey, something's wrong. Have you considered or looked into adding some kind of GPS to this, or would it just get too big and clunky like most of them that are out there?
We are looking into GPS, and we're also looking into a completely cellular version that's just all by itself, so you don't need to have another cell phone for it to work with. And it's actually, we're able to do it. Just on the manufacturing side, it's going to cost us a bit more money and a bit more time to produce it. But it's a really, that's one of the things that we want to look into in our pre-order campaign. So if people go to our website and sign up to join our mailing list, be notified, that website is join, JOIN, .smartstones with an S, .co, that's .co, join.smartstones.co. And if folks go on there and they sign up, they'll be able to get emails from us that will involve them and start to ask questions. We're a very open company, so we really want to get as much feedback from people as we can, because it's really important to us to make this a meaningful product for people. So if having a standalone cellular version of this, where they don't need to have it work with their cell phone, is important. We'd love to know that. That would really be helpful for us. Okay.
Well, that's great. I will also put that into our chat box here so people have that. Elva said, wow, she just learned from the Smartstones website that architects in the Dementia Village outside of Amsterdam are doing a U.S. version. So I didn't know that either, and she found that on your site. So that's very cool. That's very cool. Whereabouts are they doing that in the U.S.? Do you know?
That's I believe that's going to be in San Luis Obispo, which is the Central Coast, just about an hour north of where we are. So it's
very cool.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, we've through the organization we've been in discussion with here in California called the Tri-County Regional Center. They provide products and services for people with disabilities, and there's about 21 of those regional centers across the state of California. They help support about 14,000 homes or families here in the Tri-County area, which includes San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura County, where we are. And they're working on a housing concept, which is sort of a more sensitive home. So if you think about home design is sort of built on sort of rigid structures and things like this. And if you think about the security systems or the safety systems that are in place in homes that have been used in the past for caregiving, they're sort of designed and based on the prison system. Some antiquated systems of, you approach a door and it locks, right? You open a window and a siren goes off. And there is definitely a time and a place for that kind of, system. But they want to use, they want to look at potentially using Smartstones for helping to give a little bit more, more trust for the people that are in the space, to give them more latitude to travel and to walk around and to roam, because there's something really wonderful and human for getting around and exploring, right? And feeling and providing trust. Also being able to have other products in these smart homes or these sensitive homes, like you might have heard of this thermostat called Nest. It's a smart learning thermostat, or these other types of internet-connected smoke detectors and all these other things. So we're right at the beginning of this wave of sort of technology that's kind of disappearing. It's like the objects around us in our world are going to get smarter, and they're going to start to adapt to us. So you're going to start to see changes in the way homes are designed and appliances are designed, so that you don't have to think or work so hard to make things happen, and things can kind of respond to you. So as you maybe approach your home, all of a sudden your lights come on and your coffee pot fires up and, the heater kicks on. And so they want to look at the use of Smartstones in this futuristic world of a home that can sense and respond to the human being. And so that's a fairly exciting thing for us because we believe that, technology should kind of disappear. It's not that technology is not complex, but we want that complexity to go away. And we want the world around us to feel more magical, right? To let people live and, just have a wow experience. And that's really, I think, the more wow experience, the more childlike experiences you have, especially when you're getting older, the better. So it's that sparkle in the eyes that you want to keep seeing as we get older.
Yep. Wonderful. Well, very, very exciting. I thank you for your time and your innovation and your persistence in terms of just, because it's not an easy process to develop something new and, groundbreaking in terms of any type of project, but then you make it with technology and it becomes even more complicated, trying to get people to understand it and fund it and move it forward. And I just think it sounds very, very interesting and something that we should all be watching out for. That's for sure. So, you want to give us information again on how people can purchase these and how they can? I'll just let you go from there.
Yeah. So the best way for people to find out more or be able to purchase Smartstones, our first product, which is going to be called Smartstones Touch. The easiest way to find us is just to go to Google and search for the word Smartstones, plural, Touch, Smartstones Touch. And we'll show up in the first one or two spots, so you can just click the link, and that'll take you right to our website. And then you can, on our website, you just enter in your email address, and it'll add you to our mailing list. And then once you're on our mailing list, we'll let you know when they're going to be available. So we're going to make them available for sale directly through us. We're also going to be on Amazon.com once the products are ready. And so, you're going to be able to find an easy way to order these things, to order Smartstones Touch. So, just go to Google, look up Smartstones Touch, and you can find us there. Our website address, if you want to go directly to it, is join.smartstones.co.
Okay, and no M, no .com, just .co on there. So we kind of get into that set pattern of how we do things. So we just want to make sure that people know it is just a CO and that wasn't an error when you were speaking. No M at the end there. So wonderful.
I did want to make a mention, too. If anybody has any questions at all, please feel free to contact us. We're happy to answer any questions. We really thrive on the community and, are happy to respond quickly to anybody who has any technical questions or any other interest. There are some questions we have had that I wanted to maybe share were around where does it work? And basically it will work anywhere. So we are going to be making it available so that you can use it in pretty much any country in the world. And so they will also be able to connect and communicate with anyone in the world. So as an example, if somebody, if their parents or their loved one might be one or two states away, they can still use it. Or if they happen to live in the same city, it works that way too. If they live in the same home, it works even better.
Okay. So what is the distance that these can go?
As long as your Smartstone is within 200 to 300 feet of a phone or a tablet that has our app running on it. So as an example, if you have a tablet sitting at home and you just have the app on it, it'll work within a couple hundred feet of the home. And if you happen to want to go walking down the street or go in a car ride and you happen to take a phone with you, just make sure the app is downloaded onto your phone, and it'll work anywhere. You can be driving
Okay.
you can go down Route 66 in your car and have this working with you in your car while you're driving. Totally works anywhere.
Okay, wonderful. Well, good to know. Anything else we should know before we let you go?
Just how much I appreciate you, and thanks for inviting us onto the show, Lori. This has been a real treat, and again, anybody who wants to reach out and let us know what they think of it, we're all ears.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, Andreas. This is a really interesting concept, again, called Smartstones, which has an S on it, .co. Smartstones.co. Go check out more information there, and you'll have to please keep us posted as you make progress. We'd love to get an update from you and be able to pass that on to our audience here on Alzheimer Speaks Radio.
Wonderful, Lori. I absolutely will do that.
Okay, thank you. You have a great week. Okay.
And you too. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye now. So, well, how interesting is that? I just love entrepreneurs and innovation, just taking things a different route. Again, I think it's absolutely wonderful. Please note that you can go ahead and share this episode with your friends on Facebook, your Google Circles, your LinkedIn groups. We had wonderful information and resources have been added to the page for the Wanderinng information, as well as the 24/7 contact with the Aging Institute that Betty gave us. And check out Smartstones again. See what you think. Get on their mailing list so that you are up to par on what things are. Next week's show, again, we are going to have the authors on Remember, I Can't Remember, and we will also have the CEO of the Alzheimer's Foundation of America with us. So looking forward to next week. We will also, on the 24th, have our Dementia Chats session. So that is a webinar series where we interview people with dementia, and we would love you to be part of that. And I am just going to play one of our songs off the Christmas album from Alzheimer's Music Connect, and I think I'll play the Little Drummer Boy today.
Come, they told me, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, a newborn king to see, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. Our finest gifts we bring, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, to lay before the king, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum.
From Alzheimer Speaks, have a blessed week, and the holidays are upon us. Take care.
Hi, this is Suzanne Newman, host of the Answers for Elders podcast and radio show. We are the North Star that guides you through the complicated journey of senior care with trusted experts in money, law, living solutions, and more. So join us on this station, your favorite podcast channel, or just go to AnswersForElders.com. Meet the Wayshowers who will help your journey go a lot easier.